Most people think to get an apology from an avoidant, you have to chase them, beg them, or make them feel guilty. That's the exact thing that makes sure they never apologize. What you're about to hear is going to feel a little uncomfortable because it's not about what they need to do. It's about what you need to stop doing. There are specific things that, when you shift them, change the entire dynamic. And no, this isn't about playing games or manipulation. This is about understanding how the avoidant brain actually works, and using that knowledge to set standards that make an apology not just possible, but almost inevitable. Stay with me, because halfway through this video, I'm going to share the one thing most people do that actually prevents the apology from ever happening. And it's the thing literally everyone does without realizing it. Let's start with something real. If you've ever tried to get an avoidant to apologize by telling them how hurt you are, by crying, by sending long paragraphs at 2 a.m., you already know it doesn't work. Not because they don't care, but because that approach triggers something in their nervous system that makes them shut down rather than open up. Here's what's actually happening. Research in attachment theory, originally developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, and later expanded into adult romantic relationships by Cindy Hazan and Philip Shaver, shows that people with avoidant attachment styles developed a very specific coping strategy: suppress emotional needs to avoid rejection. So when your emotional needs show up in front of them, intensely, repeatedly, their brain reads it as a threat. Not a person they hurt, a threat. And you cannot get an apology from someone who feels like they're under attack. So what do you do instead? The first shift. Stop explaining your pain. Start showing your standard. There's a massive difference between saying, "You hurt me, and I need you to understand that," and saying, "What happened wasn't okay with me, and I won't keep showing up in a dynamic where that's normal." One invites them into your wound. The other shows them a door and makes it clear you know where the exit is. When you communicate a standard rather than a plea, something shifts for an avoidant. Avoidants actually respect people who hold firm limits, because their own internal world is built on self-sufficiency and control. When they see you have that same self-sufficiency, you become someone worth showing up for. If they respond to your standard by suddenly becoming more present, more careful, more accountable, that's a sign they're capable of growth. But if they respond by pulling further away, calling you dramatic, or going cold, that tells you something critical. I'll come back to exactly what that means in a minute, because it changes everything about what your next move should be. The second shift. Let silence do the work you've been trying to do with words. This is the one most people skip, and it's the most powerful. Avoidants are wired for distance. It's their comfort zone. So when you pursue them with explanations, they retreat further. But when you stop, when you genuinely pull back and give them actual space, not strategic silence designed to make them chase you, but real, grounded silence that comes from choosing yourself, their nervous system does something interesting. It notices your absence. Research on avoidant attachment consistently shows that avoidants engage more when they don't feel emotionally cornered. Their defensive patterns, the shutting down, the pulling away, tend to ease when there's no pressure bearing down on them. That's not a coincidence. It's how their nervous system is wired. So your silence isn't punishment. It's removal of pressure. And that removal is often what creates the first crack in their wall. The moment they start to actually reflect on what they did. Now, here's the thing I promised you earlier. The one thing that blocks the apology every single time. Waiting for it. Visibly. Desperately. In a way they can feel. When an avoidant senses you need the apology to be okay, they feel controlled by it. And avoidants will sacrifice almost anything to avoid feeling controlled. So the apology becomes impossible, not because they don't feel remorse, but because giving it now feels like losing power. The moment you genuinely stop needing the apology is usually the moment it shows up. If right now you're thinking about a specific situation where this happened to you, where you waited and they never came through, drop it in the comments. I want to know what that looked like for you, because I think more people are sitting in that exact spot than anyone realizes. The third shift. Make accountability feel safe, not shameful. Avoidants avoid apologies, partly because apologizing, for them, feels like total collapse, like admitting they're a bad person, not just that they did a bad thing. Researcher Brené Brown has spent decades studying the difference between shame and guilt, and the distinction matters here. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt says, I did something bad. Guilt can motivate repair. Shame shuts people down entirely. And avoidants, who already run from emotional exposure, are especially likely to experience accountability as shame, as an attack on who they are, not just what they did. So when you come at them with, you always do this, or you never care about anyone, even if it's how you feel, their brain hears, I am fundamentally broken, and they shut down. Instead, try separating the behavior from the person. What you did hurt me, rather than, you are someone who hurts people. It sounds small. It's not. It opens a path for them to step through without feeling destroyed. When you make that shift, and they meet you with an actual acknowledgement of what happened, that's real. That's progress. But if they use that opening to minimize, deflect, or flip it back on you, that's your sign. Not that they're incapable of change forever, but that right now, in this version of the relationship, the accountability isn't coming. And you deserve to know that clearly, not spend another 6 months hoping. If this video is already landing for you, and you recognize yourself in what I'm describing, go ahead and like it. It genuinely helps me know what to keep making. The fourth shift. Know what an apology from an avoidant actually sounds like. Because here's the thing. Sometimes they do apologize, just not the way you expect. Avoidants often apologize through behavior, not words. They show up. They do the thing they know you needed. They're suddenly more present. They make a plan when before they were always vague. That's not nothing. That can be a real apology in the language they know how to speak. But, and this is critical, behavioral apologies only count if they're consistent. If they show up for 3 days and disappear again, that's not repair. That's management. Real accountability, whether in words or actions, has staying power. Watch for that. And if you're someone who's been accepting the show up for 3 days cycle as enough, I want you to think about why. What is the belief underneath that that's making you okay with less than what you actually need? That question right there might be more important than anything else in this video. Here's the truth underneath all of this. You cannot force an apology from an avoidant, but you can create the conditions where one becomes possible. By holding standards instead of making pleas. By letting silence do what words can't. By making accountability feel like a door instead of a trap. And if they still won't come through after all of that, that's not a failure on your part. That's information. Valuable, clarifying information about whether this person is capable of giving you what you actually need. You're not here to fix someone. You're here to be with someone who chooses to show up. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.